Welcome to What's That Pen? Helping you find your next perfect pen. My name is Amanda Arneill, and today we are looking at the Monami, the Monami Plus Pen 3000. This is a 36 pack of pens, and spoiler alert, it was only $13.40 for 36 pens. That in and of itself makes me very excited about these ones. They come in this hard plastic case, and so far I think the colors look very intriguing. We have some neons, and typically those end up being disappointing. So let's see how they are with this set. So at 37 cents a pen, let's dive in and see what you get for a quarter and a dime. There is the 36 set. There's also a 24 set if you don't want to dive in and get all the colors. But again, for $13, you might as well just get all of the colors, or there might be that one or two colors that you are missing out on, and that might be your new favorite color. You never know. So these are a water-based pen. There is nothing really special about them. They're not acid-free, nothing like that. But I have read on some of the reviews that they are great for bullet journaling, and I think that a lot of that has to do with the pen tip size. The tip of the pen, while it is a flexible brush tip, it's not ultra flexible, and the size of the tip is like a 0.3 to a 0.5, so quite small. Now, in a way that's great because it is really hard to find stuff that small, and I know if you're into bullet journaling, often you don't have a lot of space. So having a nice small brush pen could be a fantastic addition to your stash. So let's open up this case and see what we've got inside. There are two clips, and then, even the top shelf hanging clip is a clip to hold the case closed. And upon opening it, it is incredibly satisfying. Each pen has its own little double clip system, so that you can clip them in and out. This is super handy to be able to just pack in your bag, especially if you're doing bullet journaling. You know that you want to be able to take your pens on the go. Maybe you're in a coffee shop doing out your next spread, and something like this will keep it clean. It's also really nice that you're not going to have to be digging around in a pencil case. They're just right in there. You can pop out the one or two that you want, clip them back in, and pack up at the end of your session. All right, let's take a look at the tip of the pen. Like I said, it is very, very small, and it is a felt nib pen. Right now, I am writing on a cardstock that does absorb ink quite a bit, so I'm pretty sure that the colors are different when you are using a smooth quality paper because the absorption is different. So that is something that I do notice right away from using it on this paper. But let's take a look at our upstrokes and downstrokes. So a thin upstroke, super easy to achieve. You can feel the pen on the page, and the downstroke is not super thick. But again, that is really helpful for when you don't want to be writing too big. And these are absolutely a small scale writing pen. The thick line is very, very thin, and the thin line is also very, very thin. But there still is difference between the thick and the thin lines. And that's what we want to make sure that we still have with a pen that we're using for brush lettering. Let's look at the nib rebound. So going up and down, up and down, up and down in only one direction without turning that pen. And when you look at the tip, I can't even see it, it's so small. It hasn't really been pushed in any particular way. You can actually see this part of the tip is plastic. This white right here, it's only just this little bit up here that flexes, the part with the color. So that's why the upstrokes and downstrokes aren't big. It also appears to have a slight curve, but not too much. That means that your lettering will look consistent over the size of your piece. So the writing size for this is ultra small, definitely not a large pen at all. I would say it's probably smaller than what you would do with the Tombow hard nib pen. And as of right now, that was my smallest pen. So I guess no longer as of right now, now that I have this one as well. Let's test out the juiciness for this. So coloring it in, which is gonna take a lot again, because it's such a small pen. And you can see that having to color a large space like that, it leaves a little bit of streakiness. I would put this on more the dry side of the pen, but then just doing that there, you can see that there are actually ink marks left at the end. So it looks dry when you're coloring a large area, but when you are writing slowly, you don't have that streakiness happening. Let's look now at our ease of transition. So how easily you're able to go from a thin stroke to a heavy stroke and a heavy stroke back to a thin stroke. So thin upstroke, pressure on the downstroke, and thin upstroke. Very little change even. Thin upstroke, pressure on the downstroke, and thin upstroke. So with this, there's almost no change. So a lot of that too is because of the scale. If we were to scale it down, maybe it's this pen even, I didn't have this with the other ones, but there's not that much difference in the size. Whereas with some of the other pens itself, there was more difference. So I'm wondering if there's even a bit of inconsistency with the nibs. This one does look like it's not quite as pointed as the other ones were. For 37 cents a pen, you kind of expect a little bit of that, but it is a bit disappointing. Let's try it with another color and see if there is any difference. So with this pen, there definitely is a difference in that upstroke area and the downstroke area. I think that is a faulty pen in the pack, which is disappointing because I do love a nice green, but most of the pens won't do that to us. So the ease of transition is super easy because these pens actually take quite a bit of pressure to get that downstroke. They are listed as brush pens, but I don't know that they are intended to necessarily be brush pens, which means that they aren't ready to bend over and be a brush, but you can definitely force it. On a scale of yay, okay, nay, and stay away, I would say that these ones are okay. They're definitely good for someone who has a heavy hand and if you want to be writing small. But if you want to be writing large, your transitions are not even going to be visible because the difference between the upstroke and the downstroke is so tiny because the pen tip is so tiny. I want to take 1 minute to test these pens out on a smooth cardstock. And this smooth cardstock is listed in my recommended supplies. When you feel it, your hand just glides over it. It's not glossy paper, mind you. It's a smooth press cardstock, which means that it's gone through the paper press more than the one time of the regular paper. So pens glide over this really nicely. It's very similar to a Rhodia paper or one that you will find in lots of bullet journals, especially the good quality ones that have nice smooth paper. So this is more of the experience that you would typically have because you don't really want to use brush pens on regular cardstock anyway. It's too rough and it's definitely going to tear up the nib of your brush pen. So testing it here, the pen flows actually much more smoothly over the smooth paper. So if you are using these pens and you find that they feel like they're catching or they're a bit jittery, it's probably the paper that you're using them on. It's not necessarily the pen. Now, because the tip is so small, you will feel those jitters if you're using a rougher paper. It's like driving a kid's bicycle over gravel versus driving an SUV over gravel. The larger vehicle, you're not going to feel the gravel so much, whereas on a kid's bike, there's a good chance you're going to wipe out, especially if you're a full-grown adult on a kid's bike. So let's test out those neon colors because in the past, those have been a bit of an issue. So this would be a neon orange, and it actually is a very vibrant neon orange. That's awesome, especially if you're doing bullet journaling because it is really nice to have those clean, crisp neon colors. So we also have a yellow in the pack, which right from the tip is almost glowing. It is 100% a bright neon fluorescent yellow, just like straight out of a highlighter. And so this pink, I would think would be the neon version of pink. And it's sort of missing the punch that you would hope for, but it is a nice pink. So in this pack, we have 2 neon colors. Now, there are also some very unique sort of colors, this light coral color, this color here that's sort of a darker coral color, which actually is a very nice, rich, deep pink. And one thing I don't love is that I don't feel that the body of the pen matches the color that comes out of it, but I do like the color that comes out of it, so I can't complain too much. Some pens also are very, very similar in color. We have a light mint and a second light mint that's slightly less light. So this is the light mint, and this is the darker light mint. And again, from the body of the pens, I expected them to be very closely related in color, but they're actually quite different. The darker light mint is more towards the neon sort of scope of what you would expect. So this is the color that I would expect more with this green, and this is definitely not a neon color. Now, the color labeling on the outside is 100% confusing. You might want to, if you have a set of these pens, especially if you're using them for bullet journaling, do a quick color chart so that you know when you grab a pen what it's actually going to be on your page. Otherwise, you might ruin your whole spread. It does have a number and a description of the color code. But again, that might not be exactly what you would expect to come out of the pen. So that one was mint green, and then this is F green. So fluorescent green, but the barrel of the pen does not suggest that. That is one thing that would trip me up a little bit. I think I'd want to rearrange this. So if you are using them, make sure that rather than looking at the barrel of the pen, you take a look at the color description on the side, and that will help you get a sense better of what you can expect when you write with that pen. So when I think of these pens, I definitely see them as a fantastic tool if you are into bullet journaling. They're also a fantastic tool for doing smaller sized writing, which is something that can be really hard to find pens for, especially colored pens with this much variety in color. Now, I would say that these are not great to be used on regular cardstock. I think that it will ruin the nib really quickly because the nib is so tiny and fine. But if you're using this on the proper smooth paper, then you shouldn't have too much of a problem with that. You also shouldn't have too much of a problem with the feeling of it skipping or catching on the page. And I have to say that this case, definitely from the second that I figured out that I also had to open this clip and opened it up, it just had me smitten. Opening it up, being able to have such control over your pens, not having to search through a pencil pouch to find the right pen, it's really a nice touch for this set. I don't typically keep my pens in their plastic cases or their cardboard cases, but I know that I 100% will be keeping these in this case. It also means that it's easy for you to store them so that they're still sitting horizontally, which will usually make your pens last as long as possible. You can store them flat down like this, or easily tip it up on the side. They're still sitting horizontally, but they'll be taking up much less space. Even slide it into a bookshelf. It's taking up almost no space and can sit on that bookshelf right beside your bullet journal. Perfect. With the option for 36 colors, the ability to write super small and controlled with these pens, the fact that there are neon colors, and 37 cents per pen, I would say that if you are looking for some small colored pens, these are a great option. Where else do you find pens that cheap? I didn't love, though, that one of the nibs is already looking a little bit sad. It makes me a bit worried for the lifespan of these pens, but again, 37 cents a pen. If one or two of them kind of kicks it, it's not that big of a deal. Keep in mind, though, for your best results with these pens, you need to be writing on a small scale. Otherwise, you won't be able to see those upstrokes and downstrokes, and your letters will end up just looking like you wrote them with a regular pen. The fact that they're not super juicy when you're coloring over areas also means that these are a great option for the lefties. You won't smudge it, and given that the pens are so light, it's very likely that they also won't bleed through the paper quite as much as some pens that throw out more ink onto the page or have darker colors. There are some dark colors available, but the majority of them are in the lighter side of the color range and can be mix and match very nicely for a whole bunch of different effects. As you use them, make sure that you pay attention to the color code written near the scan bar on the bottom of the pen. That is your best indication of the color on the inside. So it's not great that the color of the pen barrel is not exactly what you would expect on the page. I always like when I can just look and grab, but at least we've got a little bit of a cheat sheet here. Or you can always make yourself a color chart and just tuck it right here so you have that as a reference. Quick, easy, and always with you inside the case. I would recommend these pens just as something that's fun to have, as something that is great for if you are writing small scale, and as something that would be a great alternative in a bullet journal. I know it's hard to find pens for bullet journals that won't bleed, that won't smudge, and that still write on a small scale, especially if they're brush pens. So these pens would be a very good option for you. Make sure that you subscribe or scroll through the playlist to see any other pen that you could possibly want. And there are more coming. If you have a pen that you'd like to see reviewed, just leave it down in the comments and I will get it as soon as I can possibly get my hands on things. It's a little bit tough right now with everything going on in the world, but I will do my very best. I also have a stash of pens coming up, so make sure that you subscribe so that you don't miss a single one. Until next time, happy lettering.